When the world changes faster than policy can keep pace, people are forced to react in real time. Sometimes by adapting, sometimes by bending the rules, and sometimes by paying the price for the decisions that they never made. Hello and welcome, I am Sadhika Tiwari and you're watching Eco India. Let's start on a colourful note. In India, we love our bling. Color is not just decoration for us. It actually carries our history, our culture and livelihoods. From dyes to designs, from tiles to textiles, the handmade and craft sector employs hundreds of thousands of workers, most of whom work informally. These systems are built on skill, rhythm and natural conditions, which means even small disruptions can create ripples which can have a huge impact. For our next story, my colleague Bahar is trying to take a look at how climate change is impacting India's creative economy.
A swirl of blue, the clacking of looms, to the sound of handmade drums. India's craft industry includes weaving, natural dyeing, pottery and hand-painted items. The sector generates millions of dollars in export in spite of competition from machine-made goods. But now, climate change is the new disruptor for this ancient industry.
Whether it's jackets made from wool or it's cotton saris, anything which is handmade, which involves craft, hundreds of communities have gathered here at this one spot in Delhi. And what they're talking about is how subtle changes in the weather is impacting not just the craft that they weave, but also their livelihoods.
I'm curious, how will India's once rich and vibrant craft economy cope with the tectonic shifts in the weather? And what kind of ingenious solutions are being deployed to deal with these changes?
Real gold on the tile.
I've come to meet Poonam Gupta. Her shop in New Delhi sells high-end designer tiles, surfaces laced with artistic motifs, some even lined with real gold.
We wanted to start making tiles in India because, not really people were making designer tiles in India. Designer tile was a concept from Italy or from Spain, where you would see Giorgio Armani tiles and all of that. And we were all importers.
Poonam reached out to suppliers in Rajkot, Gujarat, considered the tile manufacturing hub for the entire country. Ordinary tiles are made by mixing natural materials into a slurry, pressing the powder into shapes, drying and then applying the designs, then firing them in a kiln for strength. Poonam got some of India's biggest fashion designers to share their artwork, which was then embossed onto the tiles through a process called third firing. At every step, the weather conditions like rain or moisture play a crucial role.
So we've been doing this since 2007. We didn't even think about changes in weather that time. We were only thinking design technique, and what base tile to use to make sure it looks good. That happened to us and it struck us like a bombshell because we couldn't produce in time when it was raining.
The third fire tiles used to be dried in the sun, but with erratic weather conditions, production slowed down.
Over a period of time, I think we took almost 18 months to get to the right design and the right configuration of the dryer. And yes, there are no other options because you cannot rely on the weather now.
Patel's observations are echoed by scientists. Data published in 2025 confirmed that India is experiencing solar dimming, a long-term decrease in sunlight that reaches the grounds, primarily due to aerosol pollution. Drying machines ended up as a climate solution, allowing both Poonam and Himen to continue their business. While they could afford to invest in the machines, I realize the smaller cottage industries may not be able to do so.
Tell a transparency story.
Back in New Delhi, fashion designer Shani Himanshu is learning to pace his idea of slow fashion with extreme weather conditions. He's transformed his love for indigo to an immersive museum, devoted not just to the color, but the process by which it was traditionally produced. His label is renowned for its use of indigenous cotton and 100% natural dyes.
Indigo is beautiful. I mean, in terms of when first time I came across the whole living vat, that itself kind of made me dive deeper into it. That how can be something living make a color which you adorn on your body. And then going back to the history, you know, the name itself has an India into it.
Natural indigo dyeing involves creating a low oxygen vat using agents like fruit or iron with an alkali like lime to make the blue indigo pigment, which then binds to fibers, resulting in vibrant blues after oxidation. The meditative chemical-free process he follows, he says, is good for our health and also the planet. He doesn't just stop at blue. Shani plays around with other colors too, generated from dried flowers.
It's not just indigo that is being made in the premises here. There are other natural colors which you can also generate. This is the flower and it's used to generate another color, for instance, hues of yellow. And this is the boiling process. This water is really hot and we're going to dip it in here. There. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And they'll keep rolling it like this so that the color spreads evenly. There you have it. That's the color. A natural, lovely, sunshiny yellow.
Dramatic changes in the weather also impacted his creative process.
Now, this unpredictability of the weather makes the artisans keep learning every day to day what has been happening. That either reduces their yield, the amount they can produce in a day. It makes it difficult for them how to even plan things future because you don't know. You're depending on many variables.
In Delhi's cold and winter dry months, it is the vats in which the colors are blended that must be kept as warm as a baby.
So this is the intricate process involved in getting just the right shade of blue, whether it's a pale blue or it's a dark blue. Everything depends. All the magic of the process happens right here in the vat, which is actually made of terracotta. They are using goat pellets, goat dung, which is used to insulate this terracotta vessel. And what this makes sure is they can continue the production process while making sure that the microclimate is exactly the same, irrespective of the temperature outside.
He's also installed electric heaters to ensure that the vat is able to ferment to the right shades of blue. And that's where the importance of research, trial and error comes in.
It kind of make a difference up to 6 degrees from the actual environmental temperature. So which kind of help us to maintain our temperature right and which kinds of give the same production quantities which we are able to pull out on summer as well.
This visit has left me rejuvenated. I'm now off to a gathering of craft persons from across the Himalayas, a region that's also vulnerable to climate change. The artists are showcasing their art at a festival in Delhi. I meet craft chronicler and activist Juhi Pandey. She's been documenting how changes in the weather are impacting pastoral communities and even the wool produced by their sheep.
Our local sheep wool, there were cycles of when you would do shearing specifically of the sheep because that's when the sheep is completely full of the right wool for you to now bring into production. And it's become very erratic for the shepherds to understand that. There used to be 2 shearing cycles, now it's become 1 shearing cycle. Change of weather affects the feed. There are different types of plants and grasses that our sheep and our camels, etc., feed on for their own health. It's their health that then creates also the wool and the hide that we get.
Her exhibition, conceptualized by the voice of fashion, shows how the hands behind the craft work too need better representation. climate change is only part of a larger problem of providing visibility to a fast perishing industry that's desperately in need of survival, support, and recognition. I realized that the people I've met on this story are not only reviving India's ancient traditions, but demonstrating innovation to keep Indian handicrafts surviving in a world ridden by climate change.
When climate change impacts crafts, it doesn't just impact the finished product, it goes all the way back to the thread itself. India's relationship with cotton actually runs deep. The hand-spun wheel was central to our freedom movement and actually found a place in one of the earlier versions of the national flag. Today, India is one of the world's largest producers of cotton and also positions itself as a global hub for sustainable textiles. For our next story, we travel to Kutch, where cotton has for a long time survived without control, chemicals or canals. But now it has to survive the market.
Yet again, it's been weeks since this part of Gujarat state last saw any rain. Temperatures in the summer can touch 50 degrees Celsius. Kutch district is one of India's most arid regions, recording just 400 millimeters of rain per year. But that doesn't prevent the ages-old indigenous Kala variety of cotton from thriving here. It's known locally as Zinda, meaning alive. Its growth depends entirely on the weather, good or bad. If God gives good rains, the crop grows well. The farmer only has to work hard. For almost 5,000 years, Kala cotton has provided a livelihood for people here. Spinning the material by hand and dyeing it with natural substances are skills that have been passed down through countless generations. And Kala cotton is very much alive in drought periods too. For farmers like Jeevti Ben, the plant provides welcome financial security. Plant cotton, prosper at home. Growing bajra and moong doesn't earn us money. And thanks to Kala, we were able to buy 3 fields amounting to 35 acres. But the trade in Kala is a tough business. Globalized markets and a fast-changing fashion industry are growing issues, as is the declining number of people with the skills to grow and process this type of cotton. In the early 2000s, a lot of farmers here and in other parts of India made the switch from Kala to a genetically modified cotton variety. And BT duly brought faster returns and higher productivity. But there's a catch, we're told by farmers here. BT needs more water and more fertilizer, and being more vulnerable to pests also needs chemical treatment. All of this increases the farmer's costs. The produce is completely chemical. And after growing BT cotton for 3 or 4 years, the soil loses its quality. It becomes almost dead. The change to genetically modified varieties has had a detrimental effect on local artisans. Meanwhile, the 2001 earthquake in Gujarat exacerbated the situation. It destroyed livelihoods and the delicate community networks that are so important for residents of Kutch. The government wanted to see the region and its population make a swift recovery.
A lot of BT cotton was provided to farmers at highly subsidized rates. Of course, the impacts of BT cotton, the challenges of BT cotton in semi-arid terrains, all this was really not the priority. The priority was to really get people to start moving into a genetically modified seed and potentially lead to higher production.
This is the village of Adesar in the east of Kutch. Some farmers here have chosen to stick with Kala, despite the government subsidies available for BT farming. They hope it will give them a sustainable and dependable income. Founded during the aftermath of the earthquake, the Khamer organization provides a platform for conserving craftsmanship and its traditions, and for marketing Kala cotton and its end products. From raw material procurement and design to value addition, washing and finishing, everything happens on our campus.
एक बार कपड़ा बन के आ गया तो उसकी धुलाई का काम
Cloth sampling is done here, while production takes place in artisans' home workshops.
करते हैं, लेकिन प्रोडक्शन का जो पूरा काम है जो वो आर्टिजन के अपने घरों में उनके वर्कशेड में होता है.
The fibers are skillfully spun into yarn by women in their homes, enabling them to earn an income under their own roofs. Only natural substances are used for the subsequent dyeing process. Then it's over to the weavers to transform the material into fabric. Dayalal Bhai has been weaving for some 4 decades and is proud to continue and pass on the tradition in his family. I buy yarn from Khamir. Khamir sources cotton from farmers and passes it on to women spinners. So each person earns from the same chain. We are all part of one ecosystem, dependent on each other. That interdependence is what makes it sustainable. And because everyone is involved, the traditional knowledge and skills continue. Kala cotton is enjoying something of a revival. Except it's struggling to be picked up by the retail giants. The reason? Its fibers are far too short for industrial production.
They need 28 mm, 29 mm. They're not going to touch anything below that. Now that's where the color cotton will not qualify.
Another issue is the handcrafted fabrics having to compete against industrially manufactured imitations. Plus, that all-important organic certification for Kala often doesn't appear on finished garments, meaning consumers never see it. That's a problem, and one affecting everyone involved in the cultivation and processing of Kala cotton. We have to adapt to changing times. Previously, we didn't know about social media, but today we use it for marketing and to promote Kala cotton products. Here on the Khamir organization's campus, the focus is not just on cultural heritage and sustainable fabric production. Another major aim is to ensure better lives for future generations. I hope we can create an environment where they can achieve that and find happiness in the handcraft work they do, and that they feel a sense of responsibility to carry these skills forward. Kala cannot compete with fast fashion cotton varieties. What it can do is provide a real ecological and sustainable alternative, quality as opposed to quantity.
From the sun-soaked fields of Kutch to our homes, the question remains the same. How do we live a life without leaving traces of toxicity behind us? Our homes heavily pollute the planet. The construction and the building sector is by far the largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world, accounting for a staggering 37%. So how do we build houses in a world where the housing crisis is real, but so is the climate crisis?
At first glance, you might think we're in a bakery. But what's being stirred together here is crop waste, such as wheat and rice straw or cotton stalk. Here in the southwestern Indian state of Goa, the startup Green Jams is producing green bricks. Even the binder is derived from industrial waste.
We've invented our own alternative cement, which essentially is compatible with crop residues, because of which Agrocrete, the world's first verified carbon negative bioconcrete, can also be applied for structural applications which directly replace conventional cement concrete.
Tarun Jami is a civil engineer, and in 2017 he founded a startup with his brother.
Construction is one of the largest contributors to climate change, which means that there is a direct correlation between construction and the billion-dollar climate disasters that we're seeing every year.
Brickmaking shows the scale of the problem. To harden bricks, they need to be fired at temperatures of up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. There are more than 100,000 brick factories across India, which use about 25 million tons of coal a year. That's a disaster for air quality and a major hurdle to India's 2070 goal of net zero emissions, where the country emits no more CO2 than it removes. Construction is one of the top greenhouse gas contributors. In the southern state of Tamil Nadu, architect Karthikeyan is taking a different approach. Tradition is important to him. That's why he's been working with mud brick for the last 16 years.
If you see the process of creating green mud bricks, it's just mud and 8% stabilizer. Traditionally, we used all natural stabilizers, but due to the decline in environmental resources, we add a bit of lime and cement, a total of 8%, and the other 92% is mud.
Ultimately, the mixture is formed into bricks in a large machine. The advantage? Instead of being fired at high temperatures in a kiln, they dry naturally over several weeks, a process that generates much less polluting greenhouse gas. Some 6,000 kilometers away, in Germany, researchers Christian Geeth and Michael Kretschmann are combining these two ideas. They're creating mud bricks from waste products.
Mud was already used as a construction material in the last millennia. It's one of the first construction materials that humans used to build homes. Now it's possible to create much more high-tech building materials made from mud than in the past.
Years of study and research went into creating their initial prototypes. The pair found the answers to questions like, how can cracking be avoided? How can mud be made waterproof? Their efforts earned the pair a German Environmental Award nomination. Their building material is made from earth excavated from building sites, which would otherwise be discarded.
The soil is first prepared so it arrives in the form that we require. We check the water content of the earth and check that it is wet enough for it to stick together.
Mud as an alternative to concrete? Eike Roswag-Klinger loves that idea. He's an expert for sustainable building in Germany.
In Germany, we have very few mud brick buildings. They make up less than 1% of the construction at the moment in Germany, and we build a lot. We have to get rid of concrete in construction. At the moment, everybody builds with concrete across the globe. That's a disaster. We need to completely rethink construction.
Back in India, more than half the residential buildings here are made from mud brick, usually inhabited by lower-income households. Now the middle classes are becoming more attracted to this building material because of its sustainability. And mud has other things going for it too, as one of Karthikeyan's customers explains.
During the summer, the inside of the house stays cool. During the winter, the house tends to get warmer. Depending on our body temperature, the atmosphere inside adjusts accordingly.
These good insulation properties can help cut homeowners' electricity bills by up to 2/3. Green Jam's carbon-negative concrete is drawing interest, despite being 10% more expensive, with several investors already backing the startup. The German researchers plan to launch their own company after completing their studies. They've tested their mud bricks and are now seeking developers to work with. In the future, the bricks will be machine-made rather than hand-formed, but will still cost more than conventional bricks.
In this respect, we have to rely on the goodwill of our customers. They have to be prepared to pay the markup of about 20% for environmental reasons.
In India, these agrocrete houses are already standing. The Green Gems founders believe their idea has enormous potential and they're planning to expand.
India is the second largest construction industry right now, and it is on track to becoming the world's largest construction industry. This is definitely a growing market, and it is growing slightly higher than conventional construction industry.
Housing is in short supply worldwide. The entrepreneurs in both countries are hoping for more sustainable building in the future.
That's all for today's episode. Whether it is an artisan, a farmer, or an ordinary citizen, the response to a changing world often comes long before policy does. People learn to adapt, improvise and push back even as the systems lag. Are you seeing any communities around you adapt to these new changes in our world? Do let us know. We'd love to hear. And do not forget to follow us on our Instagram at DW_environment. Thank you so much for joining us. I will see you next week with more such stories. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Namaskar.